This one is spread at the bottom and then grows up.
I see.
So you can see it pretty clearly with those, cross arms here. So if you think VSP twice, again we're doubling, we have a wall here, we have a wall over there.
Right.
This has been, because it's in the longest now, but whenever I change this over, it takes a little bit longer to establish because we're trying to go twice the size of the plants. But it's been the most productive system.
So they're going to go up there, eventually go
Yeah,
up
so
there.
this side of the wheel is a little low vigor for it. It should have more vigor. You go down there, it's really vigorous down there, and that's where it works really, really well.
I see.
But so whenever you start ending up with more buds and more, more foliage and potentially more yield.
Yeah.
So one thing that I did that I'm actually very excited about, it worked again really good this year, even better than last year. This here used to be a VSP system. You can see my cordon down here. Well, what we did, we added another wire.
Okay.
And instead of doing what we call a bilateral cordon, bi meaning two arms, we're now doing quadrilateral, we're doing 4 arms. And I'm going to show you some photos that I just took a couple of days ago when we were harvesting this, just to show you what amount of fruit you can actually produce on a system like this. So last year, for example, we know how many buds we lay down.
Right.
Well, we only had 42% of them break.
Okay.
Which means if you had done a bilateral cordon, you were down to 42% of a potential yield. Well, we doubled up on the quadrilateral, we actually have 42 times 2. So we instantly doubled our yield. We went from a very meager 1.5 ton to a 3 ton just by making that change.
Okay.
That's 1 wire, a few staples, and a few more minutes to tie down 2 canes. And it's a very, very simple but very effective adjustment. I now have 2 more studies that I'm doing with this. Last year we did one on Tempranillo. This year we're doing the same Tempranillo study again, which we will harvest tomorrow. But we also did Gewürztraminer. The grower who did it with the Gewürztraminer, he got an extra ton an acre for running 1 extra wire.
Okay.
In fact, he didn't even run the extra wire. He actually used the foliage wires we already have and just tied it to a foliage wire.
I see. I see.
But he actually ended up getting over an extra 2,000 pounds per acre by making one simple change.
I see.
And that makes it, that's $1,400 an acre. He may have spent an extra $200 for picking and maybe $50 to actually tie them down.
I see.
I mean, his net is probably $1,000 more
Yeah.
than he would have done without making that simple change.
Yes.
In the Tempranillo block, I expect that difference to be somewhere around between $3,000 and $4,000.
I see. Okay.
Because we're probably going to crop an extra 2 to 3 tons
Yeah.
on that extra wire.
Wow.
And so the way that I like to do it, not every year we're going to have cold damage.
Yeah.
So if we have already enough buds and enough shoots on the lower one, we have to take out the upper one. Now if you let that go to a cordon, a big strong arm,
Right.
that's going to be really hard. So instead of what we're doing, we're actually doing the lower one in the cordon and the upper one in cane. In other words, every year we cut this out. So if you look at this was last year's shoot. When it's green and growing, we call it a shoot.
Right.
When the leaves are gone,
Yeah.
it's woody, we refer to it as a cane.
I see.
So it's actually the cane is last year's shoot.
Uh-huh.
So this was basically last year's shoot, but if you look here, I've got 1, 2, I've got 3, I've got some really good shoots.
Yes.
I could make a cut here, lay this one in, and refill this with the cane. Same on this side, I've got a really nice shoot here, see it coming out. It's a nice quality shoot. It's not too vigorous, it got nice node spacing. I take this, I cut this out, I lay this one on here, and I basically have doubled my number of buds.
Wow.
The nice thing now is, if the cordon is really good, produces all the shoots I need, a cane is very simple to cut and it's very quick. I can go along and go chop, chop, and I'm on to my next plant. It's going to take me less than 2 seconds of vine. I can't walk quick enough to do this. Whereas if that was a big cordon, I'd be sawing.
Yeah.
So what we'd like to do is do this in a cordon, like everyone else does, but then use the upper one and use a cane. Because if we ever have to adjust, it's very quick. Now, if bud break is 80%, I might still have 20-30% too much. I can still come in and individually break out shoots to bring it to the right number. And I'm going to use both my planes to do so.
I see.
System here, I think that will be a change that a lot of people will do, because
Very
a
simple.
number of people already did it after I gave the first presentation last year. I think when I do this year's presentation and show them what we can do with 3 different varieties and the yield impacts, I think we're going to see a lot more people doing it. The challenge is they have to understand when in a good year they cannot leave it in, because they will have too much crop and that won't ripen and you don't get the quality. But you know, that's probably the 1 in 10 year event when we have too much crop. Many times I think we're just going to be happy that we laid down the extra cane. Now, in the very best locations, east of Palisade, they have hardly any damage. For them, it's not something they need to do. But you know, the rest, the majority of the area is not there. So we got to find ways to make people getting a decent yield, getting a decent quality. And I think you can do that with adjustments like this, the Geneva double curtain, the layer system. You know, just not stick with one prescribed, this is how we do it method, because that's not working. So we got to find ways to address. I understand why it's not working. It's all related to shoots not growing. Not enough buds laid down. So let's find ways to lay more buds down that are easy to fix if you have good bud break. Because if I did this all with longer spurs, I would be doing 15 cuts per vine. And that's very costly in terms of time. This is very simple. I don't need this particular part, cut, move on. And by using a cane, it's easy to cut over a cordon.
Now, are they going to grow back next year then?
Yes, what you do in this system, you can see it here. See, I left this last year, and the only reason I had this spur was to grow next year's canes.
I see. So they got
So when you do the system, you always have to think, I want to regrow an arm on either side. So I need to leave myself a spur position low so I can grow next year's arms again.
I see.
And that's where a lot of people tell me they don't understand cane pruning, where every year you replace your arm, and it's like, it's simple. It really is. I mean, when I was working in New Zealand, all we ever did was cane pruning.
I see.
On Sauvignon Blanc, and there are reasons for it, but it wasn't cordon spur pruned. It was always cane pruned. And most times to 4 arms. And that had to do that, you know, we are very, very fruitful on those. Any of those shoots here would have carried 2, if not 3 bunches. In New Zealand, they often only carried 1.
I see. So they only got 1.
So they only got 1, where we get 3 per shoot position. So therefore, they had to lay down more shoots to get the same number of bunches. And so that's why they went to the quadrilateral.
I see.
And their number of bunches on a shoot fluctuated quite a bit within season. It all had to do when these buds are determined to be fruitful or not, depends a lot on weather. If the weather's really good, you're going to get lots of bunches on next year's shoot. If the weather's really poor, you're going to get very low number of bunches.
I see.
So, you know, people actually do dissect buds and look how fruitful they are, and they use that for pruning decisions. Do we leave more, do we leave less? Because again, if you have lots, you don't necessarily want to come in and thin. It costs money to thin. So if you can do it right from the start. But in our climate, our problem has always been, or almost always is, not enough.
I see.
So we need to set up a high potential, and then in the odd occasion that we actually get it, we make adjustments. But most years, we think we set up a huge potential, and then we come out somewhere halfway to it. It's like, okay. But, you know, that okay has to be good enough. And on 2 arms it's not. So we gotta make changes. So every time that we have 4 arms, on the GDC, on the lyre, on this system, we see an instant response in yield. We pretty much double it, and we're getting numbers that are, you know, I think economically sustainable. We can actually make money rather than lose money. And you know, it's a business.
Good.
So